Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Life Between All or Nothing. I'm Scott J,
I'm Mary Kay.
and we're here to tell you that if you're stuck in your life, you don't have to be. And it's never too late to make changes, whether they're big changes or small changes or silly changes or serious
Yeah.
changes or just something that you always wanted to do. Stop making bucket lists and start making lists of things you're going to do today. That's all I want to say. I mean, people have been
Yeah.
stuck too long. I've been in that place. Mary's been in that place, and that's why we are so passionate about this. It's why we want to bring it to you. Don't be stuck. But
Don't be stuck.
it's
That's
been a
right.
hell of a week. And Mary, you went through a snowstorm.
Ooh, yeah.
How bad did it get?
It was pretty bad. So we got about 15 centimeters. But lots of drifting and lots of drifting. And my car was encased in it this morning.
Oh wow, I don't miss
Yeah.
that. I don't miss that stuff at
Oh,
all.
it was
Bro,
kind of brutal. It was kind of brutal. I did help a lady that was stuck in the road though. When I got back to my parents' house after dropping my dad off for dialysis, I go back there, and she had a front wheel drive minivan, no snow tires, and was trying to get through an unplowed street. Now I've got four-wheel drive, so it's not a big deal.
okay.
Oh my God. So I just said, wait there. I'm just going to go park. I'll be right back. So I came running back with a shovel and a bag of salt. And every time she tried to move, I would shovel and I would throw salt underneath her front tires. Anyway,
Wow.
she made it slowly, but that was the fun highlight of my day today. How's the
That
weather
is
there?
that is so awesome. I mean, we struggled down here too because we got record temperatures. It was 87
Yeah.
degrees today. And I mean, listen, you're laughing, but it was tough. I had to work and I couldn't sit by the pool like I wanted to. I mean, my life is
Oh,
hard down here. All right.
yeah.
Uh,
The little violins are playing.
yes. Lee's with us already. And Lee, thanks for joining us
Hi,
there.
Lee.
Jacques is with us.
Thank you.
Jacques.
Jacques, yay.
All right.
Hi.
And two of my favorite people, Scott Jones and Mary Kay. There we go.
Oh, thank you.
And
Back at ya.
there's a message from the guy who's waiting in the he's in our waiting room and he's already putting messages up. So
Oh,
he's
is he?
obviously getting bored. He's getting bored. He probably ate all the fucking M&Ms and he's ready to just go on the air now. So
Oh boy.
so Mary, why don't you tell I mean this is just so exciting to have this guy on. Tell us about him.
It is. Christopher Rausch is debatably the world's most effective and impactful, unstoppable, no excuses coach, speaker, workshop facilitator, retreat leader, whose life apprenticeship of victim to victor is nothing short of miraculous and surely inspiring. Today, as an international keynote speaker, Christopher Rausch captivates and enthralls audiences with his story and then empowers them to accept what life has presented. He gets them to embrace change and to take action personally and professionally. His commitment and credibility are indisputable as he so obviously lives his message. He definitely walks his talk, and people leave awe inspired and motivated to take action, regardless of any perceived obstacles. And we're going to get into that. And so, with that, let's bring on the one and only
The one and
Christopher
only Mr.
Rausch.
Christopher Rausch.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? What's up, guys? It's such an honor and pleasure to be here with you both. I am super excited about this conversation. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, we love
Absolutely.
having you here. Thank you.
Absolutely
Yeah,
our pleasure.
our
I've had a
pleasure.
chance to watch some of your, quite a few of your shows actually, and
Thank you.
I'm inspired by you. I'm in awe of you, and
Yeah.
I appreciate people who are out there, not like Mary Kay just said, not just giving a message that's going to be a popular message, but giving a message that comes from something real within them. And you could tell the difference between the truth tellers and the posers. And you're a
Yeah.
truth teller, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the only way to
Definitely.
be. I was one of those people pleasers for many, many years, saying all the things that everybody else wanted me to say, and I was miserable. I was comfortably miserable. What I actually
Yeah.
now define as being comfortably miserable, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I just decided to be who I am and be raw and authentic, and it's been amazing ever since.
Now, was that something everybody just says, all right, that's cool, go ahead and be that? Or did you have some like resistance from friends and family?
Oh yeah, I had a ton of resistance. Yeah, it's people. I said, I'm a rocker, I'm a biker, I'm a smart ass, but I have a heart of gold, and I want to help people, and I want to help elevate this world, and I just want to do it my way. I don't want to do the whole suit and tie thing and everything. You can go see on my YouTube. I'm wearing suit and tie and doing all that shit. And my friends are like, no, you can't do that. People don't like swearing. You're going to alienate your fan base. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. So the God's honest truth, guys, and I haven't told this story in a while. For a long time, I had 2 Facebook profiles. This is back when Facebook was the thing. I had 2 Facebook profiles. I had one that was called Good Chris. I called it Good Chris. This was the Chris that didn't swear, that said everything that everybody wanted to say. And then I created this other profile, Bad Chris. This was Chris that spoke how he normally speaks and did this. And the God's honest truth is side by side, both groups or both pages, I guess, were both doing simultaneously about the same. And so I just finally one day I was like, okay, and I had people on the Good Chris page that said, if you go to the Bad Chris page, I'm not going to follow you anymore. I just had to say, you know what, it is what it is. I don't fault you for that. I speak a certain way and I act a certain way. And if that's not for you, that's okay. And I wish them well. And many of them stayed anyway, but I wound up having those 2 profiles for a while. But yeah, I had people telling me like, yeah, Chris, you can't do that. And even to the point where I changed my branding, I became the kick-ass guy. And I was at a training with Les Brown in Los Angeles, and I was in my outfit, if you will. I was just being me. And and on the 3rd day of the training, he actually pulled me out of the room, the speaking room that we were in, and he pulled me out into the hallway of the what do you call it, the entryway of the Sheraton Gateway Hotel. And he says, Christopher, you're an amazing speaker. He goes, you're phenomenal. You're passionate. You have a great story. He goes, but I would love to put you on stages, but I can't do this. And he kind of looks at me up and down. He goes, I can't do this. And I said, well, Les, I'm not going to change who I am. And Les Brown and Tony Robbins were one of the two people really with their cassette tapes back in the days when I was homeless that really kind of shifted my mind. I had no idea about personal development. So here I am face to face with Les Brown. I've got pictures of me and him in bandanas if you ever want to see him. And he goes, I can't put you on stage like this. And I said, I'm not going to change, Les. And I sat there in the Sheraton Gateway like thinking, am I an idiot? Am I really stupid? This guy's sitting here telling me he can put me on stages. But I'd already done all that stuff. I was successful on paper. I had the money and everything else, but I just wanted to be me. And everybody else in the place was like kissing his ass, and they were all wearing suit and ties and like, oh, Les, look at me. And I was just being me. I was like, hey, what's up, Les? Good to see you. And he started calling me Mr. Kick-Ass. He's like, what's up, Mr. Kick-Ass? I was like, oh. So yeah, I mean, I had people telling me not to, but now it's crazy because everybody out there is trying to be edgier and stuff like that. So I just tell people just to be who you are.
That's right. That's right. And I think, Christopher, a lot of us live, like you had that duality on paper, right? Like you had the profile, but a lot of us live that in here where we're this person in this situation, and we're this person, like whatever the script is in those particular situations, instead of being our authentic self in every place, right? So I think it's amazing that you finally decided to know, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be the kick-ass version of me that I want to show the world. And I'm seeing some comments come up, but I can't read them.
Yeah, people. We're getting shout outs from Walter and
hi, Walt.
Lynn Serrano. Patricia my mom is with us again tonight.
Oh, Lynn, Patricia, thanks, Mom. Sandy Mom. Thanks, Mom.
Ron is with us. And yeah.
Hi, Ron.
What's up?
So lots of people out there with us for this.
Thank you, guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
This whole thing, this no excuses thing. I mean, I want to get into your story, and I know Mary wants to ask you questions to get your story.
I do, yeah.
But I want to start with just this no excuses thing, because that's right up and in your face.
Yep.
It's right there. You got your hashtag, no excuses, coach. Where did that come from? Was that a personal thing for you? You discovered your own excuses were holding you back, and that's why where did that come from for you?
That's a great question, Scott. It actually didn't come. I didn't really own that title and probably maybe about 4 years ago, I decided to call myself the No Excuses Coach. Working with my coach back in 2019, we were trying to find ways to differentiate myself. And she just asked me, she goes, why are you still here today? Given everything that you've been through, why are you still here today? And I said, number one, I just never stopped. I just kept going no matter how I felt. And I said, number two, I never gave myself any excuses. Back in the day when I dropped out of school and everything, I thought I was stupid and everything else. And my mentor had told me, why don't you go back to school and get your GED? And I thought he was crazy. And so ultimately I sat there and I said, I can't give myself that excuse that I'm stupid, because if I'm stupid, then I need to go get smart. And if I need to go get smart, then that's the next step I need to take. So the whole No Excuses Coach really came about as the fact that, when I work with people, that's the big thing that I take away from is their excuses. It's like the big thing I do is like, if you said, I don't feel like it, and that was your main excuse, and you stop saying that, how different your life would be. I don't feel like it. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. All these these stupid excuses are just ways of sitting there limiting yourself and holding yourself back, when in reality, if you get resourceful and you really want something bad enough, that excuse will not stop you.
Which I guess they would have to understand that, listen, 98% of every excuse we come up with is just a self-generated excuse, because we either really don't want to do what we're supposed to do, or we have so little faith in ourselves that we'd rather quit before we start. But it is all self-generated. I mean, every once in a while, there is the one excuse that, hey, the car blew up, and that happens.
Yeah.
But 98% of the time, these are self-generated, aren't they? And you have to understand that if you're going to beat that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes back to our childhood conditioning, honestly, Scott. The fact that when you think about what happens in our lives, really it happens between the age of 0 and 5. And so when you think about all the different things that we were told and the different ways we got out of situations, I mean, a perfect example is the fact, hey, Chris, did you do the best you could? How many have we heard that? How many of us have heard that? Did you do the best you could?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay, we'll do better next time. Nobody qualifies what your best is, and then what's better next time. And so we come up with these excuses. Oh, wow, I get out of jail free card. Oh, I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to. It's like, okay, well, I have my excuses, but really what it is that you're holding yourself back. And ultimately what I tell people now today, as I said, you may not feel like it. That's one of the popular excuses. Well, Chris, I just didn't feel like it. I'm like, but did you feel like the result? If you felt like having the result, then of course you got to go through that. You got to do what you haven't done in order to get what you haven't got.
Wow. That's amazing. And Christopher, I know a little bit about your background, about your childhood, and me looking on that, and I'll ask you to talk about it in a second.
Sure.
Like you could have used that as an excuse, saying, well, that was my upbringing, so that's why I am the way I am, and never stepped into the person that you are today. So tell us a little bit about that. Now, I know you're a seventh grade dropout.
Yeah.
So that would have been around age 12.
Yep. 13.
What happened before that? Like 13. Yeah. So what was going on before that you felt the need to drop out of school?
Well, I didn't personally choose to drop out of school. Up until that point, it was a lot of physical and mental abuse going on in my house. My biological father wasn't in the scene. He was actually married with a family of his own. My mother suffered from various psychological disorders and chemical dependencies. And quite honestly, she told me, she goes, I should have never been a mother. And I said, so why were you? That's another story. But she already had another kid before me, my sister, who was a half sister, same mom, different dad, because my mom was promiscuous. And there was a lot of violence and a lot of different things happening in the house. And then ultimately my mom drove everybody away. And then the ultimate deal kicker was the fact that her favorite cat, the cat that, was her best friend and everything else about her life, got feline leukemia, which is a death sentence. And so she wound up spending the last $5,000 that we had trying to save his life, took him to an emergency cat hospital. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks, spent all the money, and then couldn't make the rent. And by the way, she was unemployed. Wow. And so what happened was, I came home from school one day, I was halfway through the 7th grade. I was 13 years old. And she says, we have to move. And I said, okay, so where are we going to move to? She goes, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? She goes, well, we're being evicted and we have to be out of the house. Grandfather's going to try to get us a place, but we're not sure. He wants me to get rid of all the cats, which, by the way, my mom had 30 cats and 4 dogs at the time and would not relinquish those whatsoever. And so we wound up having no other choice but to move into our 1969 Country Squire station wagon with the nice wood paneling on the side of it, with 18 cats and 2 dogs. That's what I remember. We couldn't catch all 30 of them because basically we were told to be out by 5 o'clock. Otherwise, the sheriff was going to throw us out. And so the sheriff showed up about 4 o'clock with the landlord, and we had to skedaddle out of there. So fortunately, we got most of our belongings out in a U-Haul rental truck, put those in storage. And then that first night, my grandfather was nice enough to get us a week stay at a motel nearby while we tried to figure things out. And that figuring things out lasted 4 years.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. That's quite a place.
Yeah.
That's quite a place to come from for the first decade and a little bit for like that's your foundation, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's where you're formed, and your mom. And so what happened to your mom eventually?
Well, I mean, throughout, I mean, she was actually homeless for a lot longer than I was. By the time I got to be about 17 years old, I got to a point where I'd already had 2 failed suicide attempts and ultimately had a gun put to my head. I can tell you that story, but I had a gun put to my head, nearly thought I was going to get my brains blown out. And I told the guy to pull the fucking trigger. I looked at him, I said, pull the fucking trigger. And I expected my brains to get blown out and it was going to be all over. But fortunately, somebody came out from another motel room and stopped the whole situation. And I was faced with a choice. I'm like, I'm only going to get out of this situation in one of three ways. I'm either going to go out in a pine box, I'm going to go out in the back of a patrol car because I was doing bad things, or I'm going to have to make my own decision to get out of the situation myself and leave my mother behind. And that's what I ultimately had to do. And so she wound up staying in that motel. We lived in and out of this motel for a while. And she wound up staying in there for another like 4 or 5 years at least until it was torn down.
Wow. And
then ultimately, she always said, she goes, because we actually won the lottery while we were homeless. We had a $5,000 lottery ticket. I'm like, wow, we can get an apartment. We can find, this whole struggle was the first and last month's rent and everything else. And she's like, well, they won't take the animals, so let's not do that. And so ultimately she blew the $5,000. And ultimately she said, I only wanted to go out of here to a 4-bedroom house with a 4-bedroom house with a pool. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? Like, we lived in a car, we lived in a cheesy, horrible motel with prostitutes and drugs and cockroaches and all sorts of stuff. And I said, you want a 4-bedroom house with a pool? Are you what? God is my word. She was the last person. They were going to tear down the motel. It's right near Disneyland. So the 5 freeway was being widened and the motel was right along the freeway. So they actually bought out that. And so they have to do tenant relocation payments. So she got $7,500 and she went out to Corona here in Southern California and found a house and bought a 4-bedroom house with a pool. And,
wow.
Yeah, there's so much more to that. It's all part of the book that I'm almost done writing.
Oh, part of the book. I can't wait.
Yeah, here, I'll show you a sneak peek. There's it's called It's Just You and Me, Kid, because that's exactly what my mother said to me when I was born. She was supposed to place me for adoption. It's Just You and Me, Kid, a story of survival of a mother and son survival on the streets of Southern California. Yeah, so it's pretty incredible. It's quite miraculous that I'm here and I'm half the person that I really am. And so actually writing this book and then actually going back and reading it and reliving a lot of this stuff reminds me of just how powerful of a person that I am and all the success that I've had. I mean, going back, getting a master's degree after being a 7th grade dropout, now becoming a father myself and having a successful corporate career where I made lots of money and had great prestige and everything else. But ultimately now being a coach and a speaker and an author and podcast host has been way better than anything else I've had in my life.
Wow, Christopher, you walk the talk.
Those dark times. We were talking before the show started. We were talking about it. And you have a very similar outlook on it that I have on my dark times with my addiction and family and everything else that I went through. I actually look on it with grace now because that living in those dark places and feeling that sadness and suicidal ideations constantly. Yeah. What it did is it created something different in me that other people don't experience. People who have never seen the real dark side or don't know what real loneliness is or don't know what real fear is. Yeah. That has created something in me that makes me appreciate the light even more, makes me appreciate people even more, my family even more, my children even more, every moment. And it's like, I don't have to win a lottery now. I just, just give me 2 slices of bread and some peanut butter and I'll be fine. I'm good. You know why? Because I made it through shit that most people can never think about. Yeah. I have a feeling you carry your stuff with you the same way. It's not a shame anymore, right?
No. For a longest period of time, I lied about my childhood for when I started becoming successful. I never told people that I was homeless and dug through dumpsters and, had all these different things, horrific things happen to me. And then ultimately one day I shared my story with somebody and they said, wow, that was powerful. And they told me quite honestly that they were thinking about killing themselves. And they said, because I told them my story and they were so respectful of what I had accomplished in my life. And especially now that they found out what I had been through, it stopped them from doing that. And it gave them a shift in perspective. And that's honestly the first little taste I had of becoming a coach and becoming a speaker and using my story to actually inspire other people. So I started just being raw and vulnerable, raw and unscripted with people, if you will, and started sharing my story. And then ultimately I told a few friends of mine about my story. And one of my buddies said, what would be like the biggest thing that you'd like to do with your story and come full circle with your life? And I said, that's a great question. I said, I would love to go back to the school that I dropped out of, because at this point I was doing some speaking here and there. And I said, I would love to go back to the school I dropped out of and talk to the 7th and 8th grade class and really just tell them like, hey guys, I was just like you. I was sitting up in those bleachers. I was watching assemblies and people come here and speak. And here's the journey I've been on. Holy shit. I didn't swear there, but holy shit, here's the journey I've been on, and just inspire those kids that whatever they're going through, especially this day and age, that they will get out of it and they can get out of it no matter what it is that people say or whatever obstacles or roadblocks or, imperfections that are highlighted in their life. They have the power to change their their trajectory. And so the guy that was there, funny enough, says, "Oh, where did you go to school?" And every time before that, I had told somebody where I went to school. Nobody knew where it was. And I said, "Oh, it's just this place in Anaheim. It's called Brookhurst Junior High." And he goes, "Wait, where?" And I said, "Anaheim, Brookhurst Junior High." I said, "On Brookhurst and Crescent, La Palma." And he goes, "My wife's a PE teacher there." And I said, "Get out of here. Shut up." And we always joke around with each other. And so I was like waiting for him to start smiling. He goes, "No, seriously, my wife's a PE teacher there and she's best friends with the principal." He goes, "I'm going to talk to her when I get home tonight and see if the principal will have you come speak." And then ultimately, a few days later, I got an email from him saying, "Here's the principal's name and number. Contact them. They're going to try to get the Anaheim Bulletin out there and talk about the hero's journey of what it is that you accomplished." And so I got to go back to the 7th and 8th grade class and speak in front of them. It's a YouTube video. It's a video on my YouTube. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I knew at that point, guys, that to use my voice and to use my experiences and everything that I had went through, that it was for my greater good and my greater prosperity because of the person that I turned out to be. And afterwards, I had kid after kid after kid walking up and saying, "Can I shake your hand? Can I give you a hug? My mom's a drug addict. I'm living with my grandparents. I'm living in a motel. I'm part of the Olive Crest Children's Foundation, which is a place that I mentor at-risk kids that have been in and out of juvenile hall, out of foster care. They have no other place to go. They have nobody that believes in them. I'm one of those mentors for this organization out here in Riverside." And kid after kid after kid. And after that, I was like sold. I want to speak. I want to go help people and just change how people are truly thinking about their lives and get out of their own way to be able to be truly successful and rock their individuality.
Wow. Amen to that.
I can't believe that opportunity came around. A lot of the people never get those opportunities to return and to do that.
Close that loop.
They miss these amazing opportunities. They can make them happen.
Yeah.
I get to, every time I sit with somebody who's coming out of addiction or alcoholism, and they're coming out of detox and they're shaking and they're like, I just can't go one more step. And I could tell them, yeah, you can. And I could be there with them as they take the next step and the next step. Mm. And for me to do that, that's all I could do for the rest of my life. I'd be a happy guy.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I'm on borrowed time anyway. I mean, I turned in my membership card for the human race a long time ago. I tried to cash out. It didn't work. I'm still here. And so I'm here for a reason. And that reason can't be to chase dollars, and it can't be to drive a fancy car, and it can't be all that stuff. It's got to be to make a difference. And meeting people like you and of course, Mary, and just people who want to make a difference it's the world, man. That's everything. Yeah.
It's the greatest feeling in the world. And I've inspired so many other people to put that in their mind's eye. I'm like, can you imagine going from the situation you're in right now to ultimately a couple of years from now being in a position where you could go back and help people who are in your same situation now? And people get a hold of that and like, oh my God, and it becomes a drug. I just had somebody leave me a 7-minute message this morning saying that she's been following my content for 2 years and just finally reached out and said, "Oh my God, you've saved my life." She actually put a post on Facebook recently, I think it was yesterday or today, saying Christopher Rausch, saved my life. And it's amazing because now she wants to go back and do that for other people. And if we all together start getting real and raw with ourselves and get honest with ourselves and start telling our stories, number one, people are going to have a lot more respect for you to know what you've been through and what you've grown through and the person that you become today. And then ultimately we can raise the vibration of this planet and get out of the fear and everything else that's going on and the scarcity and I always screw things up and I never am able to do that. And you don't understand that, my parents did this and my parents did this. I'll give you guys an excellent example of how the power of the mind can override all that bullshit. So I told you that my sister is half sister. She's 7 years older than I am. She left home when she was 16 and I was 9. And she said, "Sorry, baby brother, I can't take mom's bullshit anymore. She's crazy." And she, told me that she basically had to raise me for the first couple of years when she was just a kid herself. And so I really had no love and attention, cuddling or anything else. And when you think about what the conditioning process we go through as babies, if you read Dr. Gabor Mate at all, he's phenomenal in that area of research. Actually, I think Mary Kay, we're going to actually study his book next time in the book club because I keep listening to it. It's phenomenal. But so I didn't see my sister from the age of 16. I was 9 years old. Fast forward to 2005. This was back in 1979 or something like that. I don't even know. Let's see, 69. Yeah, actually it was 1978 or 1979 because I would have been 9 years old and I was born in 69. So I didn't see her until 2005. And she went to go live with her dad, and her biological father, by all means, was successful and quote unquote normal, had a job. He got remarried. And so whenever she would go to his house on the weekends, he had custody of her on the weekends. She would come back with presents and clothes and rub it in my face and everything else. And so she said, "I'm going to go live with dad. I can't take mom anymore." So, and then when I meet her in 2005, I'm expecting that my sister's going to be beautiful and slender and successful, and she's going to have everything made out in her life. And I quickly found out she turned out exactly like my mother. She went in the same profession. She had a same amount of cats. She had a boatload of cats. She had a boatload of books. My mom was incredibly book smart. People smart. She was stupid as the day is long. Had a whole bunch of books, went in the same profession, and she blamed everybody else for why she was unhappy. And guys, I was just like, how? And she actually asked me, she goes, baby brother, how did you not turn out like mom? You went through being homeless with her. You went through all the violence and all the abuse and everything else. How did you not turn out like mom? And I looked her straight in the face and I said, I chose not to.
Wow.
I stuck my head in books. I went to seminars. I've studied successful people. I've read autobiographies. I've done all the hard work. I've gone to therapy. I've been on medications. I've spoken to people. I've been honest with my stuff. I said, I've continued to work on it because I saw what was not working and said, wow, geez, if I want to do something different, I might have to think about things differently. And so that's the path I went down, ultimately to the point where a year after I got reconnected with my sister, I wished her well because she was so much in her victim mindset that she was no way going to change. No matter what I said or what I did, she was so firmly committed that her life was miserable because mom, and she left when she was 16 years old. I was like, holy shit, this is mind blowing how I turned out as great as I did. I owned my own house and it was like, but I wished her well. I was like, that was one of my boundaries because I always wanted to help everybody. And ultimately said, I'm not going to do that to myself. I will sit here and still take care of my mom because she was still alive at that point. And I wished my sister well. And I said, I really hope you have a great life. I hope you get everything you want, but please don't ever contact me again. And I have no regret about that.
Wow.
But that's the power of victimhood. Tough
choices, right? But you recognize what you needed, and it was to not have your half sister in your life. And
yeah, there's that toxicity. She was like, how's your mother doing? And I'm like, shut up, Maria. It's our mom. And then it came to a point where Christmas time, I had to go to Chicago with my then girlfriend, now my wife. And I asked my sister, I said, can you please do me a favor? This is the first Christmas I won't be with mom. She feels alone. She feels mad and sad because I'm going. She feels like I'm betraying her. But I told her, hey, guess what? This is happens when you have other people in your life. And I said, can you please call mom on Christmas? I asked her to go over there and like hang out with her for a second. She said, no, I won't. And I said, can you at least call her and say Merry Christmas, mom? And I had them over to my house. But ultimately, my sister couldn't even do that. And the writing was on the wall. And for me to make that boundary and make that shift, so many things changed after that for me in a positive way. It sucked that I had to do it, but it helped so many other people in that same situation.
Christopher, I love you, brother, but I gotta hold you to something here.
Okay,
I gotta because a lot of people say something similar to what you just said, but they never talk about how it happened. You said I just made a choice. Yeah, at one point you said I made a choice that I was going to live differently than what I was brought up in. Yeah. I'm going to become different. I'm going to be responsible for myself. I'm going to make my own choices. And everybody says that. Oh, you just have to make a better choice. You have to be your authentic self. And then nobody tells anybody how to get there. Because what I will tell you is that for years, I wanted to make that choice, but I had no idea that I was capable of it. I didn't know how. And I thought for sure I was still a victim of everything that happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I went through that for a long time. So tell me, it's not just flipping a switch and saying I made a choice. What motivated you? What was it that happened?
I think it was, and that's a great question, Scott. That's why I was excited to be on the show because I knew you guys were going to ask different types of questions, and I've never been asked that before. That is great. What really broke for me was the fact that when I started seeing the writing on the wall of what I was allowing people to do to me and take advantage of my niceness and everything, I was being taken advantage of and I was being used by everybody, but I was feeling left empty and dry. Like when I needed somebody, nobody was around. And I started seeing that writing on the wall, and I was like, I wanted it for my sister. I wanted it more for my sister. I wanted it more for everybody else than I wanted it for myself necessarily. And so ultimately that was kind of one of the defining moments where I had to sit there and say, okay, if I'm not going to love and take care of myself and respect myself and be true to my values and my integrity, that's one thing. The other thing is I found out, guys, is that you can want it so bad for somebody. Like I've known people who have died from overdoses and suicides and all sorts of stuff. And I've been there for them and everything else. It just wasn't their time to get on the road to recovery. I've had personal people in my life who I've loved very, very dearly doing bad things to themselves unconsciously, eating or whatever. And I wanted it for them, but I finally got to the realization, especially with my sister, like I can't rob her of the opportunity to go through those things on herself. And perhaps she's going to go through that. And I wished her well. And I honestly thought maybe she'll get her shit together one day and come back and beg for me. Like, baby brother, I went to therapy, and then I would have taken her back. I'm like, okay, that's what you needed. She needed, unfortunately, I just realized I went and searched her on Facebook recently, and she's now My mom always said she would do her one better. Like, your sister's going to do me one better. My sister's 61 years old now. I just saw on her Facebook post. She didn't post for a couple of years. I thought she died. She just posted she's living in a retirement center, or like a self-assisted living facility. She has a scooter. She has a wheelchair. My sister was smoking. She was obese. I mean, she just continued down that path. She still has a billion cats, and that was her life. But for me, in order to love and respect myself and not feel like I had to do everything else for everybody, I had to draw that boundary, and it was tough. But so many other things came as a result for that. So, to your point, Scott, sometimes you just can't rob people of those experiences. But for me, it was like, okay, what do I need to continue to do for myself in order to gain the love and respect for myself, and from other people too?
And when you have the moment where you start to think about yourself, then you start to release the whole people pleasing thing. Because, first of all, let's get rid of people pleasing. It's a bullshit concept. All right. No, it is. It is. Everybody, I'm a people pleaser. I do everything. No, the reason you do it for everybody, because you need them to feel a certain way about you, because you don't feel that way. Mm-hmm. So you're actually an emotional vampire is what you are. You're just sucking off everybody that gets past you, and you're trying to get something from them. Being a people pleaser is actually one of the more selfish things you could do, because you're trying to manipulate people to like you, because you don't like yourself. Once you start to like yourself, you don't have to do that for other people.
Exactly true.
But thank you for explaining that, because like I said, so many people just say, oh, you just choose the other thing. No, that's not how it works. Because I know I've sat there with suicidal thoughts and wanting to die and saying, I wish I could do something different, but this is all there is. And actually, in knowing that, in my heart, my soul, my total fiber of my being, that's all I had at that moment. I did not have that awakening until later. And, and you're right. We do lose people because they're not ready. And that's a tough one. I mean, especially being in your position and what all of us do, which is we try to help people. Sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow, that we can't help everybody. How do you deal with that when you have somebody who you just can't reach? What does that do to you personally?
Personally, originally it made me feel like a failure. It was like, what could I have done differently? I didn't do enough for this person. I should have been more involved. I should have said more things. But then ultimately, really in a personal relationship, I had to sit there and look at it from a different perspective and sit there and say, okay, would I be the man I am today if I had not fallen down so many different times and made so many quote unquote mistakes? No. Okay. So I needed those experiences in order to make and shape who I am today. So that person needs to go through those experiences themselves, and I can be there for them when that happens. So I can be there as a trusted advisor or as a support person, but I can't rob them of their experiences to be able to go have that downfall, hit rock bottom, if you will. So it was tough. It was super tough for me. But ultimately out of that, I started reframing myself as far as how I viewed my love and my respect for myself, and started establishing boundaries and getting right with my values and being more congruent. Again, it was a whole process of going from a suit and tie speaker, okay, if I do these things, everybody will like me, I'll get paid and I'll be successful. And all I wanted was certainty and comfort. I wanted people to acknowledge me, because I had no acknowledgement when I was a kid. I had no love, no respect. I was bullied at school. I had my ass kicked on my street. I had my ass kicked in my house. I had no self-confidence or whatsoever. So I knew that I started realizing the success formula was do what other people want you to do, and you'll get their love and adoration. But that's fake adoration. If you're not being real yourself, then it's all fake. And that's why in 2013, I was like, I'm going to ditch the suit. I'm going to be who I am. And, I left a lot of money on the table, but at this present moment, I love who I am. And I've inspired so many people with my story and with who I am today.
If people don't understand that, please read the 4 agreements. Read it 3 times, though. Read it 3 times. But read the 4 agreements to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about being genuine of yourself and not putting fake stuff out there, because you're not getting anything back. But Mary Kay, you had a lot of questions you wanted to ask.
It's an awesome book, by the way. 4 agreements.
Yeah, it is an awesome book. And I think, Christopher, you just touched on something, knowing yourself. And that goes back to our very first or second show, Scott, our second episode about knowing thyself. And once you know yourself, then you know when you're being incongruent, because you have something to hold it up to. And I think, Christopher, you're so good at that. And I'm just so in awe of some of the choices that you made to be congruent, like, turning down Les Brown and some other things as well. Now, you had, I know one of your slogans talks about the self-help fluffy bullshit.
Yeah, my tagline.
Now, your tagline, yes. Now, you and I are in a book club and we're reading Eckhart Tolle. So that's a little fluffy. So tell me how we go from, admonishing self-help fluffy bullshit to opening up to the concept of spirituality and people like Eckhart Tolle and Richard Bach and other people that we've been reading. Tell me a little bit about that part of your journey and how you
calling me out on the carpet. I love it. Yes. My tagline when I went through this mastermind and got coaches and stuff like that and really defined who my brand was and who I am, I came up with the tagline and people loved it. It was like, I help people overcome their self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Giving them the example, like, I'm not going to ask you to meditate and go, wah, 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 the world's going to be great. Affirmations. Like, I'm going to get you from point A to point B as fast as fuck possible. And it's going to stick. We're going to get to the root of the situation, not the symptom of the situation. And here's how you're going to be successful, because here's how I've done it. But I think God, source, universe has a sense of humor sometimes when you sit there and you're so against something. You're like, okay, meditation. What am I go? What the fuck's that going to do? That's done. Oh, you're going to talk to source. I'm like, where's source? Like, really? What's all this stuff about? And I think God, source, universe started putting people into my life to sit there and say, maybe this guy, since he's so eager to learn and so eager to grow and so eager to evolve, maybe we should put some of this stuff in front of him and see what he does. And so at first I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then I started meeting people like Lee and my friend Scott Goulet and all these different people who were in the spiritual space. And I started understanding a little bit more. And I took my preconceived notions of what self-help fluffy bullshit was and said, okay, let me give this a chance. Let me see what this is all about, because I see it's working for other people. And so should I poo-poo on something that's working for other people when it seems to be demonstratedly, working for a lot of people? And so I started opening my mind. I started going from the perspective like this, like, okay, let me check this meditation out. Everybody says meditate, so let me go try this. I was sat there and was like, this is fucking ridiculous. But by the 20th time I started doing it, I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Listening and doing all that stuff. So it's become a joke. Actually, when I say that, everybody says like, well, Chris, you kind of gotten into the woo-woo space. I'm like, yeah, but I'm still not changing my tagline because it's solid. But you also have to be open to new experiences. So many of us go, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to be. And this is my area of comfort and everything else. But ultimately, when you get exposed to new things, why not try them? Why not give them opportunity? So even for me, like, to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to go meditate, still sounds funny to me to say, but I will go do it. I may just stretch and my brain may go all over the place, but I'm going to go meditate and give it a shot and read spiritual readings and become more aware of what my true reason is being here. I'm not a human being here having this existence. I'm a soul here having a human experience. And so opening that doorway for myself has allowed me a lot less fear about uncertainty, fear about death. Now I understand it better, and I know we're going to move on to a different place and a more loving place. And this is all here preparing us for what's next. It's been pretty incredible. Some of the stuff still, like reading Eckhart Tolle, God's Honest Truth. Don't hate me, Ron, but I mean, it's a challenging read because it's all over the place, and it seems like he takes 10 pages to say three things. So it's like, just cut to the fucking chase, dude. Seriously, you're like blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh God, you're making my fucking head hurt. But I'm giving it a chance. I have to read each chapter like twice, like each paragraph.
Yeah.
I literally read it twice. And normally I would just fucking throw the book out and say, oh yeah, I read it. Oh, yeah, I highlighted this. But that's not congruent with me, because you have to give it your best shot. You have to try to understand it and see it from other people's perspective. And it has opened up doors for me and opened up a lot more understanding and love for humanity and for the world over.
Ron says it's too
much
much fluff.
Christopher. Too much fluff, yeah. But we're still, but Christopher, you still show up every week, right? You didn't just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to ditch this and I'm not in. Like, you really, you embody curiosity. You embody open-mindedness. And I think that is such a huge thing, a huge part of you that I admire, because it helps me do it too. Yeah. It really helps me be more open-minded and more curious. And even my tagline is, now get curious, get clear. You got to get curious first to get some of that clarity.
I love it. And
yeah. So
one little other addendum on that is and that's kind of what my ulterior motive was with that, Mary Kay, was that if people can see me opening up my horizons and trying new things, then I can't be a hypocrite when I tell them to go try new things. It may not be spirituality, it may not be meditation, but if I go tell them to try new things, well, Chris, you said you won't try the self-help fluffy bullshit. So now I can sit there and say, hey, I'm exploring different alternatives. I've explored religion. I've read the Bible. I've read the Quran. I've read those things. Those things are not for me, but now I found something here with spirituality and having a closer connection to source, as I call it.
Yeah,
There's
that's
so
amazing.
much inauthentic bullshit out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's so many people out there. I'm living in my parents' basement, but I think I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to help people. Yeah, I mean, I am almost sorry that the whole industry, the coaching industry, and the self-help. I mean, self-help is kind of like it's dying out anyway, but because it's guided help, it's not self-help.
Yeah.
If it was
Guided,
self-help,
yeah.
I went to Barnes and Noble to look for the self-help section. I asked where it was. They said can't help you. So I never got the book. But yeah, is this on? Thank you.
He'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, all week,
Waiters
all
and
week, thank
waitresses.
But there's so much inauthenticity out there, and people who are
100%.
just throwing shit out there. Does that upset you? Because I see how passionate you are, and you're passionate like I'm passionate, like Mary Kay's passionate. I'm not passionate because I want to go out there and be a guru, and I don't want my face carved in a mountain. And I don't want people. I don't want to sit around a diaper sipping tea, around a fire and chanting. I'm not into that. I got a prayer bowl. I don't know how to use it.
Cereal on it.
I use it for cornflakes. Right, exactly. Yeah. It sings when I eat. But I have a drive that if I want my life to be what I need it to be, I have to help other people. So that's my drive.
Yeah.
But I look at other people that are doing it, and they're chasing money, they're chasing fame, they're chasing adoration, they're doing all that stuff. How does that make you feel when you see that stuff? I mean, are we ready to go out and knock some heads together?
I've got a story for you guys.
Please.
So back in my suit and tie speaking days, I was lucky enough or blessed enough to be invited to a multi-speaker event in Los Angeles, and some big names were there. I won't say them. I've accidentally said them a few times, but I try not to say them. Some big names because I'm like they're phonies. It's just like that bugs the shit out of me. Like, oh, so and so is the something for the soul author. I saw these people coming off the stage. I was in the backstage area after I spoke, and I learned something very critical in a speaking event is make friends with a photographer. So this photographer and I had him cutting up and laughing and was like, what the hell's that guy doing? And so he started telling me. And so this couple of these famous people actually had came backstage, and this guy, he came backstage and he was like, so what's going on? And his face was like all mad. He was probably, I don't know, I'm bad at distances, maybe 20 or 30 feet away from me. So I could kind of hear what he was saying, and he was all, and so how many sheets do we get? That's all I heard is how many sheets do we get? I'm like, and I asked this guy, geez, I'm gonna forget his name, but anyways, photographer, great guy, Yodi. Yeah, his name was Yodi. I said, Yodi, what is he talking about? What are sheets? And he goes, the sheets that you pass out, because I didn't have any products for sale. So he goes, the sheets, how many people filled out sheets for the products? And I said, well, he looks all pissed off. And so he was like, and he told the guys to go back out there. And I said, what is he doing? He's like, he's telling the guys to go back out there and try to convince more people to buy their products. I'm like, this guy's famous and he's got this and he's got that. Yeah. And so the photographer told me, he goes, dude, I'm just going to tell you, he goes, I've photographed a lot of these events and I've seen a lot of these famous speakers. He goes, most of them are full of shit. He goes, most of them do not walk their talk. And I've had other people who know people who have told me the same thing. And it's unbelievable. It's heart crushing because when I got into it, guys, I was like, personally, okay, we're all out here to help the world. And I want to get on this team and let's go do this, guys. And And I found out it was a lot of bullshit. And now, especially with COVID and everything else, like to your point, Scott, everybody's become a fucking coach or a speaker. They're all professionals. They've taken a $39 course on Udemy or whatever. No offense, but they do that. I'm a life coach. I'm like, somebody asked me the other day, they wanted to know what my, I was filling out something out. Somebody wanted me for a corporate client, a corporate coaching business or corporate coaching gig where you actually coach people. They hire you as to stay on retainer. And it said, where have you been certified? And I was like thinking about it. I'm like, I haven't been certified. I've been certified by life. I went to the School of Hard Knocks and graduated from the College of Adversity, man. I've lived it. I've lived pretty much everything, or I've heard pretty much everything. I've had so many clients tell me so many unbelievable things that have happened in their past. I mean, not much can shock me anymore. And so I look at it that, that's a badge of honor for me to be real in who I am and to put this book out there and to be congruent when so many other people aren't. But to your point, Scott, like when I call myself a coach, I actually almost thought about last year not calling myself the No Excuses coach anymore because I'm like, I don't want to be affiliated with those people. But what else?
Yeah.
A mentor or a guide, or I'm like, fuck it. I'm like, and I asked some of my mentors, I'm like, should I get rid of it? And they're like, no, you own that. That's why you need to be in this space because you are that guy. I was like,
yeah. Whatever. If you pick up a new name, they'll bastardize that later on anyway. You can only stand on your own merit. You can only stand on your own merits. And when people ask me about, my credentials, it's like, well, how can you do that? I'm like, well, what credentials do you want? You want my resume, my arrest record, or my medical file? Which one? Because they'll all tell you a story.
Yeah.
And all of that builds up to who I am today. But I agree with you. I've been to some of these big names and spent 3 days with 10,000 people in a room, and during 90% of that time, it was a commercial to buy more products. And hey, if you really want to do this, you have to take this mastery thing, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. I'm like, just tell me something real right now.
Yeah.
And there were good moments, and the shame is some of these people do have the skills, but they got lost in the fame.
Yeah.
And it just I hate to see that.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. I will say his name out loud. I've never been to any of his events, but everybody's like, Dr. Joe Dispenza is the guru, the god, and everything else. Go Google his name and put next to it lawsuit or put next to it fraud or something like that. There's some people that have like they've been through some of his expensive trainings, and it's like you go through this and then you have to pay for this and you have to pay for this. Tony Robbins does the same thing. Like I have friends that are Tony Robbins, not even coaches, but also trainers who have told me behind the scenes, like, they don't need to have all these programs. It's like, and that's the way I am. Like, if you coach with me for 6 months to a year, you won't need another fucking program, because we're going to get to the root of it, and I'm going to give you the tools to be able to get past it. You don't need to spend tens and thousands of dollars to continue to going in that help. They're trying to keep you on that rabbit trail. It's like, let's get to the clean, let's get to the root, and let's send you on your way and go help some other people.
And be aware of anybody who's an expert in every field.
In every field. Yep.
Oh, wait a minute. You need financial help? I got you. Oh, love, relationships. Psoriasis. Yeah, I got you covered. They know everything, right?
Yeah.
It's way too much. And
dog training.
It makes it hard. And that's one of the reasons I love connecting with you and my people on Tuesday nights, and these great people that they're all authentic. And it's like, listen, we're going out there on our own merits. We're sharing what we know. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I never will be. You're never going to be everybody's cup of tea. But you,
a jug of beer.
In every third picture of you that I've ever seen, you're wearing a KISS t-shirt, which makes you like aces in my book. All right.
Thank you.
Because I'm original member of the KISS Army right here. All right.
Well, I've got the KISS Army.
I love it.
Over here. I've got the original KISS Army sticker, never put on anything. And like,
I still got my membership card. It's framed in my office from 1978 or 79.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So nice. I still got it framed. Oh, my man. There you go.
Well, I can give you some KISS history. Or I was at the one and only KISS concert that all 4 members didn't play at. So it was out here in Southern California, because they've always all played together. I mean, Paul, Gene, Peter, and Ace, whatever, depending on who Peter and Ace were replaced by. But I was out here in Southern California, and it was out at one of the Indian casinos, and we were driving there, and there's this ambulance goes by us on this dirt road kind of thing. And we're like, what the hell is happening? Hopefully it's not anything bad. We get to the venue, and they're back behind the stage area, and we're like, oh man, it's probably one of the workers. So we're waiting for the concert. My wife's with us, and we're seeing them live. And I hadn't seen them live in forever. And so I was all excited. And then Gene Simmons comes out on stage. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to let you know that unfortunately Paul Stanley had to be taken away in an ambulance. His heart rate was like 150 beats per minute. He goes, so I'm going to give you 2 opportunities. He goes, we've never played as a 3-piece before. He goes, I get chills when I still think about this, because I was like, holy shit. And so that we can either refund your money and we can come back and do another concert for you, or we can play and I'll do the singing. And so the whole crowd was like, no, come on and play. So it was the one concert where Gene Simmons played the entire concert. And then I've seen him unplugged as well without the makeup.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
wow. That's amazing.
Rock and roll, baby. Hey, man.
Rock and roll.
Microphone right there.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And oh man, those days. Some of those days were.
I can't imagine. I mean, you're married?
Yes.
You got a kid?
Yes.
You got a cool looking studio there. I assume we're in a room or a basement or something. You built a studio, right?
Yeah.
You pretty much, you're a long way from where you were.
Oh, yeah.
You're a long way from where you were. Because I'm thinking of when you paint the picture of that nasty hotel, with the nasty sheets and the nasty smells and the cats and the, I can see it because I've been in those places.
18 cats in a 10 by 10 room.
Wow.
To be where you are now.
Yeah.
Are there ever times when you just sit and think how, I mean, have you ever been like amazed by that? I mean, certainly this was your effort, your work, and don't take that. I'm not taking that away from you, but there was a miracle working in the background too. Do you ever feel that? I've
got angels. I've got spirit guides. I've done some stupid stuff. I should have been killed a few times, but fortunately I wasn't. But yeah, to your point, Scott, reading this book and writing this book, I started it in October of 2020. And I said, oh, I'm going to have it done in a year. And it's taken me, as long as it has, because it's very painful to go back and revisit all these things in intimate detail. Like I could tell you guys, I was homeless.
Yeah.
I got my ass beat. My mom kicked the shit out of me. But to go back into vivid detail and talk about the times where I had to call the cops because I thought my mother's husband, that's all I call him, my mother's husband was beating the shit. I thought he was going to kill her this time. And she's screaming for her life. She's all, call the cops. And normally she was tough enough to handle it, but she's like, call the cops. And then we had to go outside and the blue lights and the red lights were blinking, and go back to relive all that and to relive everything and all the ups and downs I had with her. Even if, after we became homeless, after she bought that 4-bedroom house, it was like, okay, we finally started to become friends, and she had her life and I had my life. I bought a house, probably about 20 miles away from her, my first house the same year I graduated my master's degree. And so we went to concerts, we had a good time together, and then she lost her job and went through it all again. So literally she lost her house again. She had to live in my garage for 6 months with another fucking 16 cats and 1 dog this time. She lived in my garage for 6 months, almost caused my girlfriend at the time, soon to be wife. She wasn't, I don't think we were engaged, but she literally told me this the other day. She goes, I was ready to leave you. She goes, you didn't involve me in any of this stuff. Your mom was a royal pain in the ass. She was living in the garage. She had her dog that was barking. She goes, you weren't including me in any of that. And she goes, I was ready to leave. And so even through that journey, I had all the ups and downs. And then we sold her house for $36,000. She got foreclosed on, and then I let her spend all that money pretty much and left me with a trailer that was in my name that I had to pay for, all these things, guys. And it was just like reading it back is like so painful, but I'm so honored and so proud for the fact of what I've done and continue to do every single day. It's not easy. There have been so many times where I wanted to give up. There's so many times where I just wanted to sit and cry and like, why me and everything else. But that unstoppable attitude that I'm here for a reason. I'm here to do things differently than anybody else has done them before in order to get what I haven't got and to leave a mark in this world, to say that I went through all these things to happen for my greater good, to continue doing what I'm doing. And I know that I'm on the brink. I know I'm on the brink of brink. I'm on the brink of being like world known, like being super famous. I know that I'm here for a reason. I see myself speaking in front of thousands of people. I see my book getting out there, made into a movie. I know this is just the tip of the iceberg because everything's been a test. Getting laid off from my job, 6 figures, comfortably miserable. I walk in one day, they said, Chris, go, see ya. There's a longer story to that. It was kind of mutual in a way, but ultimately it was a surprise to me. We were supposed to work out the date when I was supposed to get let go, but they just fired me anyway. And to have that happen to me, it crushed my identity. I had no idea who I was anymore. And it was at that point, all those crushing experiences caused me to go, okay, do I go that way where it's easier, or do I go that way where it's more difficult? I'm going to go the difficult route because that's where I'm going to grow the most. And that's where I'm going to learn the most. I can always go back to the easy route, but I'm going to go this route because when you read the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying, which is a fantastic book written by a hospice nurse, the number one regret of the dying was the fact that they didn't live the life they wanted to live. They lived the life they thought they were supposed to live. And that complacency, that mediocrity, that, I'm afraid I'm going to make it. Fuck that. Let's go out there and fail your way to I tell people to fail your way to success. They look at me with their fucking eyes like this, like, what? I thought we weren't supposed to be not failing. If you're learning, that's stupid. Let's change the vernacular on this stuff and say, not a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. It's a stepping stone. Have you learned from your mistakes? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Then it's not a mistake. You actually learned something. It's progressing you in this thing of we call life to become the person that you're supposed to become. Because at the end of the day, if you came here with a spec sheet saying, Scott, Mary Kay, you're supposed to accomplish these things, you have capabilities to do this and make this impact and live this life, but then you get to the end of the day and you played it all safe and mediocre and you blame everything else. This is why I'm miserable, and you get on your deathbed and you meet God, source, universe, and you're like, wow, Chris, you could have been all these, but you were that. And so for me, that's why all my hashtags say no regrets. That's the leverage that I use in my brain. I'm going to go out swinging. Like I was just telling Ellie, like if you have this, you have a short window to live, go live it, still fight. Don't give up. There's miracles. Things happen every single day, but go out swinging. So at the end of the day, when you meet your maker, you can sit there and say, hey man, I gave it my all.
I want to throw a few comments up here. Go ahead.
I just want to say this because going out swinging despite of things. Now, I know you have some issues with your back.
Oh yeah.
Yet, I also know that last weekend you ran in a 5K event.
I didn't run.
So
I lived.
He hobbled.
He hobbled for 5K.
But you still did it.
Yeah.
You still did it. No excuses. Like you're proving it over and over and over again.
Yeah. My son was watching me every step. He's like, Dad, my wife was like, well, maybe you shouldn't go. And I looked at my son. I said, I'm going to go. I said, you guys may have to go ahead of me, but I can walk 3 miles. I will make it 3 miles. I didn't bring my cane. I was having a pretty okay day. There was some twinges. There was a moment I did jog probably, I don't know, 20 yards at one point. I just went, and I like fast walked. But yeah, I just wanted to show my son that you don't sit there and lie down when you're in pain. You're like, everybody's like, oh, Chris, you should take it easy. You shouldn't do this. I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep doing whatever I can with my other body parts to keep going. Because if you just sit and stay stale, then that negativity, you start going down rabbit holes, and then that negativity spirals out of control. And then you go to your addictions. For me, I've had my dance with alcohol over the years. And so like right now, I'm like not drinking at all. That's what I do at the beginning of the year. I just don't drink. But if I sat there and be miserable, like, well, I'm gonna have a drink. And then if I have a drink, then it's like, well, fuck life. Is it all this shit worth it? No, it's not worth it. Why the fuck am I? And you just like, you just spiral out of control. You got to keep going. You got to keep your mind on the legacy that you're going to leave, because at the end of the day, in 2008, I went to a funeral for one of my coworkers, and I sat at the back of the church, and I was sitting there watching all my friends that I worked with eulogize this person. I knew her, but I didn't know her. And everybody was getting up there. And my friend Dave Riley got up there in his pink tie and his gray suit and started blubbering. He's like, I miss Ann, and and she died of pancreatic cancer. And I was like, if I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And I was in my early 30s at the time. And I was like, 15 people will show up, and they'll bring cases of Miller Genuine Draft and bottles of Jack Daniels and Motley Crue and Bon Jovi records. And they're going to talk about all the stupid shit Chris did. Remember that time he got drunk and did that? Remember that? And then the postscript would be, oh yeah, he was a homo 7th grade dropout who changed the world. And I sat there and thought, I'm like, do I want to be remembered for all those party things in that little subscript? And so I went home and I wrote my eulogy. And ultimately for my eulogy, it wrote out the main part of it. When I went and read it back out loud, it said, Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked for which that mattered, and he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. So every single day, guys, I wake up and I set the intention to fulfill that legacy, because the God's honest truth, we don't know how much time we have. I mean, Ellie, we're talking about Ellie, potentially my mother-in-law, any of us, we don't know if tomorrow's guaranteed. So if this is the last thing I ever do, and my son later on in life, he's 6 years old now, later on in life, was dad living his purpose? I saw him go to the bubble run. I saw him keep going. I saw him do these things, but he can watch this interview and go, yeah, dad was on purpose. And so that's what I do every single day, is to live that purpose and be congruent with myself and to let the other stuff go.
Wow. Amazing.
Absolutely
totally
amazing.
on purpose.
Thank you.
We got all these people out there. I can't get to all these comments, but Lee was certainly saying that, amen, Christopher, help them learn to help themselves. Walter's saying you're unstoppable.
Thank you.
Patricia says you're on a karmic path, and so much the work you accomplished. Now you're creating merit.
Thank you.
And certainly just comments from everybody out there.
Thank you, guys.
You were parentified at a young age. And for the people who don't understand the concept of parentified, is where you take care of your parent, or you're trying to hold things together. And I know. And it robs your childhood. I was there in a sense in my way too. And then you become this where you never play, and you never you miss out on a lot of things.
Yeah. And
then later in life, now I'm finding myself, and then I'm watching my children, and I'm like, I want to make sure that doesn't happen to them. But I'm not saying you need to recreate your inner child. We're not going to go into all that bullshit stuff.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. But have you found a way to reconcile that lost time in your childhood now with your son?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. Actually, one of the points when I was in therapy after my mother passed away, and I was trying to unlock and try to figure out what was going on, how to grieve, because I was mad at her, I resented her, and all these different things for what she didn't do and what she did. And then ultimately, most of the therapists that I saw, I wound up helping them more than they helped me. That's God's honest truth. And so this lady, I was like, I thought that was going to be my last session with her, because I'm like, she doesn't get it. And so she asked me, I mean, you always get one, if you can get one thing out of anything, like we were talking about the book the other day, if you get one thing out of that book and you apply that thing, man, it's amazing what can happen. And she looked at me and she goes, when did you stop being a kid? And I was like, fuck, that's a fucking good question. I was like, I guess it was I said, yeah, maybe about 9. I said, kind of realistically, I think up until that point, my mom tried to have me be normal. She really did try. Her situation with her mother was unbelievable. And to the point that ultimately I sat there and I thought, okay, and I started realizing, I started doing the deeper work and asking myself more questions. I felt guilt and shame whenever I tried to do something nice for myself. I like, for me to go play, that was like, no, I got to do my chores first. I have to earn the right to go play. Like I got PlayStations and I got guitars. I got all sorts of stuff all around me. I got 69 charger downstairs, but yet I'm like, work. I have to do this. I have to keep going. When she said that, I was like, wow. And so one of her recommendations was start to play again, Chris. So I have a coloring book behind me. It's a swearing book. I forgot to show you that, Mary Kay. So I have a swearing coloring book. I started doing models. I started getting playful with myself, and it was amazing. I thought it was the stupidest thing. It was like at 2:00 in the afternoon, I'm just going to play video games. And I just like, no, Chris, you shouldn't. You could do it later. I'm like, no, I'm just going to do it now because I'm fighting myself on it. So I shouldn't fight myself. So just go do it. And then ultimately, to your point, Scott, having my son, one of the biggest things that I wanted to do, and my intention was to not repeat the generational cycles of abuse in our family. Because my mom told me a long time ago, she said, don't ever have kids. And I said, what do you mean? Why don't I have kids? She goes, well, generationally, our jaws are narrow, so their teeth are going to be crowded. My mother was weird. And that was the one thing. Well, who fucking cares about crowded teeth? She goes, abuse runs in our family. I kid you not, a quote unquote, abuse runs in our family. And I looked at her staring in the face and I said, the fuck it does. I said, you made a choice to smack the shit out of me. You made a choice to not go to anger management class. You made a choice to throw that can of Coke in my head and split my head open. You chose to do that. I'm going to choose differently. And unfortunately, my mom passed before my son was born. And, but I know she can see what's going on from the other side. And my wife and I talked about, punishment, like, okay, what's our threshold on this? Are we going to spank, spank, no spank? And we saw, okay, we're not going to spank. We're not going to raise a hand to him. But, unless it's like a dangerous situation, like he's done something, like he really needs to learn something, then swat on the butt. I talked to my friends who are parents, like, yeah, you can swat him on the butt every once in a while. Just don't give him the number to Child Protection Services. And so God is my witness to this day. He's 6 years old. I've never spanked him. I've never hurt him. I've had to raise my voice at him certain times, but that was the inner thing for me to break that generational cycle, to say, and I know Walt can agree to that as well, that I was like, no, this is not going to happen again. This is not going to happen. And I've broken that cycle. And I've told so many other people too. They're like, well, it runs in my family. I'm like, that's bullshit. That's a choice. That is a freaking choice that you're choosing to do. And so don't do it.
The funny thing is I grew up where I continued the cycle from my childhood into my adulthood with my kids and became abusive. Now, certainly alcoholism and everything else contributed, but the biggest thing that contributed was I remained a victim of my past.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, given what you've gone through, and we're coming to the end of the show, so I want to kind of put a bow.
I want to keep going. This is fun.
Wow.
I would love to keep it going. But I do want to kind of put a bow on this because I think it's important.
Yeah.
You've explained kind of the transition and the change, and you're so different. And so many people have had that kind of painful beginning and didn't find a peaceful end. I mean, they just never do.
Yeah.
What do you want to say when you're talking to people who right now are still in that sickness or still in that victimization or still stuck? What do you want to tell them personally from your heart? Don't make it politically correct, not anything else.
Yeah.
Just tell me, what does your gut want to say to people when you see them hurting and they have a choice? What do you want to tell them?
The honest thing is to sit there and look at your past with a different set of eyes. When I sit there and I look at my mom, and I have so much resent for her, and my sister blamed my mom for everything else, and it caused me to take a look at things. And I sat there and I thought, okay, if I had gone through everything that my mother went through, might I be like her? And so that was the key component for me to have forgiveness and empathy for her. I mean, she used to tell me, I'm 4 years old. I'm like, shut the fuck up, Mom. You're a grown ass person. Start acting like it. And I would talk to her just like that, as an adult. So I'm 4 years old. I'm like, shut up. It would piss me so off. She had stuffed animals everywhere and she had the cats. And I'm like, one day I was like, okay, how can I see this whole situation from a different angle? Right. And I love my mom, and I didn't really necessarily like her, but I loved her and I took care of her. I did what I needed to do as a responsible person. But ultimately, when I sat there, I thought, would I be like her if I'd gone through all those experiences? And at 4 years old, what happened at 4? Oh, that's right. Her parents divorced. Oh yeah, that's right. Her dad basically disowned her. He still was in her life, but we found out later at his funeral, he barely told anybody they worked with that he had a daughter because she was so psycho and everything else. He was embarrassed. And then she found out she was written out of the will from both her mother and her dad. It says, intentionally, I'm omitting Meredith Samantha Blake from this will because I think that they already gave her enough money anyway. We were homeless and stuff like that. And I saw that crush her. And I was sitting there thinking once I was putting myself in her situation and the fact that she did try to have me to be normal, I was abused and everything else. So not to the extent that she was by her mom, but I started having empathy and forgiveness for her. And it started getting me to open my mind and my heart and my eyes to see that everything that we're faced with, we do have a choice. We have a choice to sit there and stay in that muck and stay in that victim mindset and hope, wish, and pray that someday somebody's going to come save us. But the truth of the fact is, you have to save yourself. You have to get out of your own. You have to get real and right with yourself and say, am I happy? Yes or no? Let's start with some questions. Am I happy? Yes or no? No. Okay. Why am I unhappy? I'm in a job that I don't like. Okay. I'm in a job and I don't like. Am I doing anything to change that job? No. Okay. You're stupid. If you don't like a job and you're staying in their job, you're stupid. Don't do that. If you're in a marriage you don't like, don't do that. Stay. Well, I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. There's a lady, Monica Kretschmer. She would love this. She's up in Canada. She's the founder of the Universal Women's Network in Canada. I think it's the largest network of women's association ever. She was on my show, on the Raw and Unscripted show. And she told me the story. I said, how did you start the women's network? And she said, well, quite honestly, Chris, I had a very affluent life. I was married. Our son was 7 months old, and I was starting to get abused by my husband. And I realized that I couldn't stay in that situation anymore. I was not going to raise my son to see that. I had to get out of that situation. So I had no money. I had no anything else. So she had to go to the women's battered shelter, the battered women's shelter that she used to donate clothes and donate money to. She had to go there as a participant with her 7-month-old son at the middle of the night. And she went there and she did all the hard work and she built herself back up to be able to sit there and see, like, you have choices. If you're sitting there, if you're miserable in your relationship, I don't know. No, you have to go get resourceful, because at the end of the day, when you have enough leverage in your life, you can change things. And I'll share this with you and then I'll shut up. I've had so many people sitting there want to coach with me, and I tell them, my fee and everything, like, oh my God, Chris, if I had that, then I wouldn't need you or something like that. And I said, okay, all things being equal, I said, if I told you to go out there and raise $10,000 in 7 days and it can't be illegal, immoral, and unethical, would you do it? And they, after this whole conversation, like, well, come on, Chris, no, 7 days. Are you kidding me? If I could do that, then I wouldn't need you. I'm like, okay. I said, do you have who's the person you love the most in your life? My son. How old's your son? 9 years old. What's his name? Nathan. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute, what would you do for Nathan? So 10. So would you take a bullet for Nathan? Yes, I would. Okay. So all things being equal, you come home from work tomorrow, your Nathan's sitting in a chair and there's a guy sitting next to him. I said, I'm going to go dark. I always warn people, I'm going to go dark. And I said, there's a guy sitting next to Nathan with a 9mm pistol against his forehead. And you walk through the door and he sits there and says, lady, you have to come up with $10,000 and it can't be illegal, immoral, or unethical in 7 days. Otherwise, I'm going to pull the trigger. I said, do you go out there and do it? And every single person has said, well, yeah, I would have to. And I'm like, so what has changed? Nothing's changed except for the amount of leverage. You would get resourceful. You'd sell one of your 7 TVs. You would sell your $2,000 iPhone that you have sitting in the, you would go out and do something. You would figure it the fuck out. But right now you're going, no, because your victimhood is working for you. Oh, it's okay, Chris, you were homeless. You were beaten. It's okay, you're not successful. It's okay, you're miserable. It's okay, you're an alcoholic. No, it's not okay. We have the ultimate responsibility to ourselves to make those tough decisions. And I tell people all the time, Chris, it's going to be hard. Fuck yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. You're going to want to give up. It's going to be hard. But on the other side of it, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. It may take years. You're 35 now. It may take you 3 years, 5 years to get out of the situation mentally, physically, and financially, but you will get out of it as long as you start having that leverage in your mind. But you have to take that first step, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be awkward, and you're going to be fearful, and you're going to be insecure and everything else. And people are going to tell you you're stupid and all these other things. But 3-5 years down the road, you're going to look back and go, I'm so glad I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Well, Walter, I love Walter and Stephanie. They became two of my favorite people, like right away. Be a warrior, make the decision to maximize your life. We all have the choice to make it happen. Absolutely. And, Christopher, I appreciate your raw and your straightforward attitude, your willingness to put yourself out there and put your story out there and share that. That means everything, there's not enough of that going on out there. There's too many people pretending, too many people just acting their way through life. Not enough coloring books. Yeah. Not enough. No, I kid you not. I got pencils and crayons and coloring books in my living room. And these are not for the kids. These are mine.
He's bringing out the adult coloring books.
He's got bad word coloring books.
Oh, yeah. Let's see it.
The swearing coloring book. The swearing
cat.
See, this one,
I love it.
So this one says dick.
Oh my God.
That's a cat's name, people.
This one's maybe swearing will help. So I'll give you an idea of my.
I love that.
There's my fancy artwork. This is Bite Me.
Beautiful. Bite Me.
That is a beautiful Bite Me, Chris.
Yeah.
That is beautiful Bite Me.
I love this one too. Leave all that bullshit behind.
Yeah.
There you go.
So literally, when I color, I don't know what it is, but my mind becomes peaceful and I just let go and I enjoy the hell of it. I color with my son. I say, get your crayons out. And so we're there coloring together and having a blast.
There is something peaceful about it.
Yeah.
But I find that whether I'm playing my guitar or we're, singing or doing music or painting my new painting thing.
You're a fucking brilliant at that shit, dude.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Got my new Eddie Van Halen back there. I did recently. So.
Dude, that's unbelievable, man. That's off the charts.
But but doing this stuff, lending yourself to your creative self is really a way to allow that childhood that maybe you missed out on, or maybe just wasn't what you thought it would be. It allows you to be some of that now. Yeah. A childhood is nothing more than a creative spirit with no shackles.
Yeah,
that's what childhood is. It's playing in a sandbox, and I can make a lump of sand a castle, and it still looks like a lump of sand to every adult who's standing there, but to the kid, that's a castle because his creative side is just released. And if we could just release that creative part of ourselves, we can get some of that stuff back.
Yes,
and, I love the fact that you do that. I love the fact
that you do. And we got to be more kid-like. I mean, we're so fucked up that the adults in the world when we were kids, like, stop being a kid, you got to be realistic, get your head out of the cloud, stop being, you need to be more serious, all that other stuff. I told my wife this literally yesterday. We were talking about like kind of like fantasizing what kind of career he's going to go into. And I said, I don't care what he does, as long as he does what he's passionate about, what he loves, and he's himself. I don't care if he doesn't make any money. I don't care if he's a painter on the street corner. As long as he's happy rocking his freak flag and doing what he needs to do and wanting to do, that's 100%, because we lose that childhood innocence, and we got to get back to that creativeness, that adventurous, like, be adventurous. Like, oh my God, I'm going to switch careers. Oh my God, I'm going to change relationships. Like, be adventurous. Like, oh my God, I'm so curious about what's going to happen. Like, oh my God, am I going to, like, no, go out there, be excited about it. You're not going to attract anybody if you're like, oh man. You're going to be attract somebody like, oh my God, I'm so excited, and to go do new things. You got to.
I had somebody tell me, what if I die broke?
They fucking take anything.
What difference does it fucking make?
Your family will be pissed off, but you
lay the broke guy next to the rich guy on the slab. You don't know the difference between the two of them.
Yep.
So I mean, it was crazy, but
we all end up in the same place, right? We all end up in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight I heard so many words, Christopher, that are probably going to become stickies on my kitchen pantry. I heard compassion. I heard curiosity. I heard perspective, change perspective. I heard victor instead of victim. No excuses. Like, there's so many things, and you're living it. And I want to say an early happy birthday. I'm just letting everybody know it's Christopher's birthday on Sunday. So when you, wish him happy birthday. So an early happy birthday for me. And just stoked that you were able to be with us here today.
I'm honored. This has been a blast. You guys asked awesome questions. It's everything that I thought it would be and more. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Hopefully down the road we'll get together, do this again, and
yes.
I gotta get you on my show.
Yeah,
absolutely. I know we've been working on it, brother. I will.
You just got to fill out the form. No excuses.
Well, wait a minute. Let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
My fingers broke. An elephant went running through the room, and it stepped on my laptop, and I got an excuse. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're right. We'll definitely get together.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of projects coming up, so I'm sure we'll all be involved in those. And there's a lot of good people out there doing good work.
Yeah.
Connect with people. Connect with good people, and watch Chris Rausch, No Excuses Coach. How do they find you and find your show, brother?
Easy. Just go to noexcusescoach.com, and they can go to the shows page, and they can see the raw and unscripted show, the unfiltered experience. I have a calendar on there that shows all the shows and whenever I'm appearing in Clubhouse. So they can just click on it and click on the link and go find it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel and find me on social media. noexcusescoach.com.
Time well spent, people. Get to know this guy. You will love him just as Mary and I do. He's one of the real ones out there. So
thank you, guys. I love you both.
Thank you. Thank you
love
so
you
much.
Too.
Mary, any final thoughts while we close out the show?
Oh my God, final thoughts. No excuses. You're not too old. It's not too late. And there's more.
Yes.
Go do it. I believe in you, everyone.
Absolutely. Everybody, make sure you do one thing nice for somebody else, two things nice for yourself today, and you're going to have a good day. For Christopher Rausch, Mary Kay, I'm Scott J. Everyone have a great night. Bye-bye.
Love you guys.